Welcome to Let's Talk About Emotions. Today we're going to talk about the emotions behind racism and the emotions behind being an anti-racist. My name is Anshin Texter. I'm a licensed DEI trainer and consultant, and I've created the Befriending series of courses at Empathy Academy. I would like to introduce the people I'm with today. This is so very exciting. Beside me, I have Sheila Diggs. She is a licensed DEI trainer and consultant. She runs her own business over on the East Coast, um, doing organizational leadership and anti-racist work. I have Sarah Alexander. She's LCSW in Portland and also a licensed DEI trainer and consultant. And she is one of our great thinkers in DEI. Honestly, I've learned a lot from her. And then I have Bobbi McIntyre over on the East Coast as well, and she's a licensed DEI trainer and consultant. And you are also an instructor at Empathy Academy, are you not?
Yes.
Yes. So, I'm so delighted to talk with you today. Today, I want to start with the scary topic for white people of talking about racism and especially the emotions behind racism. So here in DEI, we're always concerned with the emotions, right? What are the emotions telling us to do? What is the message in the emotion? How can I work with the emotion? How can I listen to the emotion? When you are willing to listen to your emotions, you'll learn a lot about yourself. And you may also learn a lot about the contracts that you hold, those underlying beliefs that you hold about yourself and about how you're supposed to be in the world. So when we're talking about the emotions behind racism, we're also talking about those stories that you're telling yourself and the conditioning that you've been brought up with. So let's dive into what are some of the emotions and perhaps some of the stories behind being racist. And you may not necessarily know that you are, but it can be very unconscious. So Bobbi, yeah.
When I first started studying the history of um, Black people and the Black history of the US, um, I read Ibram Kendi's book, and I found myself getting defensive around my um, privilege, and I was shocked because being a middle class white woman, I thought I was woke, already. And it was protection, it was anger, and a desire. It was a desire to hold on to what little privilege I have as a woman, because it got me to where I am today. And I was afraid that if I let it go, I would be lost in the shuffle, so to speak. And I felt a tremendous amount of shame because it was against one of the contracts I have, which is to be fair and equitable to everyone. And so finding those, as Carla calls them, racist bones inside myself was um, really disheartening and uh, shameful. So those are some of the emotions I felt: anger, protectiveness, envy, wanting to protect my resources, as well as shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bobbi, thank you for sharing all of those. I would just this I'm being a person of color. I grew up in the East Coast, identify as African American, and so I kind of look at this from different angles. But I do think some of the emotions that have been arising a lot more with, particularly I think in the last year with the racial reckoning that we had with the George Floyd um, murder is I think that there's anger, there's confusion. I think people kind of they want to do something, they don't know what it is or how to do it, and so they're we can get stuck in a lot of confusion around that. And I think that also arises from sometimes panic, kind of going to what Bobbi just said of there's a loss. If you think about an equitable environment, um, um, we're in a white dominant supremacy culture. We've all been programmed very well. And that means it's a zero-sum game. So what one person gains, there's a perception that someone else has to lose something, and there can be a real panic in what that means for myself as a white person, and or my children or people that I know. So I think that that's another emotion that comes up, as well as the shame about thinking that you thought things were one way, and really there's rules that that may not work anymore for you, or rules that you thought were providing something that you really didn't have full information around. So I think those are some emotions that come up around anti-racism work.
Yeah, thank you, Bobbi, for starting us off with such a clear example of the progression of moving from unconscious competence in our own racism, right, into the conscious incompetence of anti-racism work. I think you didn't name panic specifically, but Sheila definitely picked up on it. I think it starts for white people. It starts with a shame contract that we don't realize we inherited, that tells us that everything about us and our culture, or white culture, is like the norm, like it's the healthy, it's the top of the um, uh, hierarchy of qualities to hold, without ever realizing that how much we're missing in our own education. And then for those of us that hold, like you expressed, hold values around equity, inclusion, fairness, all that kind of stuff, once we begin to have our eyes opened to the inequities that are built into our system, we I think that what you named defensiveness, Bobbi, I think that's panic. And defensiveness can often be mistaken as anger. Um, but how I keep a thread on which emotion is which is that panic is about our survival, whereas anger is about ethical, relational, mutually respectful back and forth. So when I get defensive, when I first noticed really like blatantly my own racism, that defensiveness felt like a survival surge to me. Like I had to, like, no, I can't be that, and nobody can think I'm that. But that was my panic, rather than my ethical, relational, mutually respectful anger. And in my experience, whenever panic is in the mix, panic needs to be tended to first, because the cortisol that's rushing through the body can distort our access to the work the other emotions are trying to help us do. So finding that healing action for panic is a very necessary step. And I love that in our DEI community, we've been talking about race and the emotional work in racism and anti-racism, because it's given us a community that for me has been very much a healing action, to look at this material.
I just wanted to speak, Sarah, to the thing that you talked about, how we have to deal with panic first. And I think I mean, I think that's spot on, because if we can't manage the panic, like we get, all the other emotions are very hard to access the wisdom of them. And so one of the things is looking at how we learn to settle our own bodies, our own physiology. You talk about the cortisol, like how do we work with that kind of um, activation, and then move back into a place where we are settled, that we can really see those emotions, the other emotions that may be there that are asking for our attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
There's so many.
there was definitely panic. Now that when Sheila said that, I went, bing, that's what it is. Yeah, it's
Right.
definitely.
Right. In one of my trainings on panic, I have a picture of a smoke alarm. And with panic, there's two faces to panic. There's clear and present danger, where fight, flight, freeze is appropriate. And then there's the other face, which I put a medicine man figure to talk about that. In that form, panic is trying to get you to your healing action.
Mm-hmm.
So in the smoke alarm visual for panic, I say, if the smoke alarm is going off, you want to ask, is my house on fire? Like, do I need to run out of here? Or does my oven need cleaning? And in this case, our oven needs some serious cleaning.
Yeah.
Those are good grounding questions to ask yourself.
Yeah. It's like, it's really kind of, I think with panic, it many times is comparing what I'm feeling inside. Is the world really asking that of me? Like, do I really have a true threat outside, or I'm up against some belief systems, some constructs that would require me to examine them or do some healing, as you're saying, Sarah?